initiating this meeting and inviting all the neighborhood leadership from this area. Betty reached out to our office and she said that she wanted to have a meeting about the VIA Advanced Rapid Transit project. And so I thought it made sense to have VIA present for the meeting, right? Because since it's their project, but this is actually VIA's new public engagement office for the purposes of working with the public and getting input and answering questions on the Advanced Rapid Transit corridor. And so they're just now opening. We are the first meeting that they are ever hosting here. They're going to, they've got 14 people here today on staff to answer questions, but it's going to be staffed every day with 5 people. And so that's the purpose here, is for just public engagement. So thank you very much for opening your doors to us to be able to have this meeting.
Yes, thank you.
So what I heard from Betty Eckert was she wanted to know what is my position as the councilman on this project. My position has been consistent on public transportation. We need robust public transportation in our city. You can't be a world-class city without a robust public transportation system. You need it to be able to reduce traffic congestion. I get stuck in traffic way too often, right? We need it for equity purposes. We need people to be able to have affordable transportation. Young people now, if you want to be competitive, young people, they can often choose to work from home. They can choose to live anywhere, right? They can work remotely. And so why do they want to choose San Antonio when they grow up and they can move anywhere? Why would they choose to stay here? And public transportation is something that they're interested in. It helps to improve our air quality. We don't meet the federal minimum air quality standards right now. And so this, having public transportation helps have less cars on the road. And so that helps with our air quality. Now, when it comes to me, VIA is a separate entity from the council office, right? And so what I see my role is being your advocate to make sure as they build out public transportation that they do it in a way where they're not impacting your neighborhoods, where they're preserving the character of your neighborhoods, the quality of life in your neighborhoods. And so I'm here today to take notes and hear what are your concerns about this project. And they're here today to answer questions about your concerns about the project. And then I see my role is to advocate for you, to make sure that they are being responsible neighbors and that they are addressing all of your concerns so that they can minimize any impacts to your neighborhood and your quality of life. So that's my position on this. I'll hand it over to Tom just to tell you a little bit more about, I guess, this center and how it's going to be staffed, anything you want to add, and then we can open it up to questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Tom Marsh. I'm the Chief External and Government Relations Officer for VIA Metropolitan Transit. 90 days on the job, so I came from working in governmental offices. But this office is sort of the culmination of both sides of my area of expertise, which is government relations and public engagement. And so, this office is sort of that full integration. While we're, when we get feedback from the elected offices, we find unique and innovative ways to try and reach out to y'all to help answer any questions so full scope and impact of how anything that's going on with VIA is going to impact you or benefit you, as we expand our service area. There's a lot of, so this is sort of, we just moved in last week, just got the security and the IT up and running. This is sort of, it's very simple, but it's phase 1. We'll be adding more and more information, and this office is going to be staffed 5 days a week. Just walk in traffic or call or email, any types of questions that you have either about service changes or detours during road construction, but specifically we're on the north-south corridor, or soon to be renamed the Green Line for VIA Metropolitan Transit. So there was, yes.
So if you have the building and everything, it's a done deal. Y'all have already decided what y'all are going to do, and because we had questions when we had the meeting at Blessed Sacrament, we had questions. We wrote them down. They were real good about writing them down. Where are the answers? I called your office to see where you stood on it and why you didn't show up at that meeting. I haven't heard back. Your assistant always says, "Well, we're going to call him. We'll let him call you." Where's my phone call?
Yeah, you don't, unless you're in this area and you're going to get impacted,
probably don't
You don't care.
much.
You don't
probably
care about the
much.
traffic problems
But if-
we're gonna have in the
I do care,
neighborhood.
and that's why we're here today.
Okay.
They have 14 staff members here to answer your questions, and so this is your opportunity to talk about specific concerns. Is there an intersection that you're concerned about? Is there
Yes.
the
Yes.
width of a lane that you're concerned about? Is there when you turn out of
Yes.
your neighborhood that you're concerned about? And that's
Because
what-
those cars that turn out and we're only gonna be
right.
able to turn
So
in one
let's-
direction?
So where? What intersection?
Well,
That's
this
what
was
we're doing.
Mandalay and San Pedro.
you. I mean, this discussion happened a year ago with
Yeah,
the,
nothing gets done.
it was before you became councilman. And I do think that Via is doing a poor job of trying to tell the
Communicate.
neighborhood or engage the neighborhood. Because these are significant changes that we as association presidents or as association members are gonna have to try to live with or mitigate with or work with our neighbors with. But I don't think Via's done a very good job of engaging us in a discussion to solve the problems we see up ahead because we're your street eyes and ears and movement. So, you know, today is just I guess you're gonna try to pat our hand again, but I do think that you didn't engage and answer the questions like you said over a year ago when you first presented it.
That's your
Then let's start
feedback.
with some questions now instead of continuing with you guys haven't done a good job. Let's today give them an opportunity to do the job we want them to do.
Okay, and but also let's talk about when. Thank you for that. When did this project? When was this initiated? Like, how back are we going?
I mean, this goes back all the way to 2014 when VIA started their 2040 plan, which was a master plan to look at all the way to the year 2040.
Right.
So, I mean, we've identified 7 corridors, you know, that could sustain advanced rapid transit.
Yeah.
And so this is the first one. You know, half of the funding came from the 2020 campaign that, you know, was passed by the voters of the city of San Antonio. And so we have been moving forward since 2020 with that messaging. Last year there was 8, you know, community meetings, 12 neighborhood association meetings that we were invited to. We will come out when asked. So we have no problem with that.
Let me add on to that, right? That there are a lot of new faces here at VIA. So if people didn't answer your questions adequately in the past, they have a lot of new community engagement members on their team. So let's give the new team a chance to answer those questions.
They should have been communicated though, amongst the company.
I understand, but I'm just saying they've got a lot of new people here
Yeah.
to do community engagement. So let's give them a chance. Let's get to your specific
Okay,
questions and let's see what we can.
I want to start out with a couple of questions. One is, what's going to happen? We have not seen the route. We've had 3 meetings within my association, okay? And we have yet to see the route of where, from the airport to the south side, where these 12 miles are going. What neighborhood? Where is it going? Where is it going to San Antonio? Where is it going to stop? We haven't seen any of that. So we're in the dark. But also, what's going to happen at the underpass? We don't know. And our neighbor is sitting right there and we've got an underpass and we don't even know. What is the difference between business streets and our streets that will take 5 or 6 aisles to do this project with? We don't know. So we've had 3 meetings from VIA already. And I don't know how many some of these other neighborhoods have also had meetings. But we're not getting the information, Councilman. So now we need help, and that's why we have called you, so that you can understand that we're not getting the answers.
Yep.
So first of all, I would like to see the route. I'd like to see a picture with the route and what neighborhoods is it going through.
Area on San Pedro? No. Is it mostly from Northmore
I
and
can't hear you.
Terrace?
I'm deaf, and I'm not hearing what you're saying, Mr. Mark.
All around this room, we have segments of the proposed route, you know, and using the environmental engineering that's been done. You know, we're almost finished with that. We have not put out the RFP to do final design or for construction yet. So there's still boxes that are being checked. But hold on, Betty. If you are interested in a specific neighborhood, we have the neighborhoods labeled on these pieces of paper. We have engineers and experts on this design that can sit there and show you exactly what the direct impact to your neighborhood could be.
Well, why can't we know what neighborhoods this is coming through. There's a lot of money being spent in this, and you are going to use some of our money that we have dedicated to VIA. We know that. You're going to use the sales tax that has been dedicated to that, plus whatever the president allocated when a group from city council went to get more money for transportation down here. So that is tax dollar money. So we are the tax dollars. We're the people that pay. But we get to find out the basic things. Why do we have to go around and look at a map and say, do you mind showing me this little thing right here? Where is this line? What neighborhood is that going through? Why are you not prepared? Why can't we know? I mean, it's just, to me, it's just kind of dumb. Why can't we know where the route's going? So we can talk to other neighbors, see if they have a problem. We need to come together as a city, not just as a neighborhood. All this, wherever this is going, this 12 miles, we need to come together with all the neighborhoods. And the neighborhood has to care on the other neighborhood. So if Highland Hills doesn't care about Almas Park or doesn't care about Shara Hills out here, well, we do. And we need to come together. And VIA needs to help us come together by giving us the information. Instead of making it difficult, why should I even have to go to the councilman? VIA should have given this information. 3 meetings we have had already in my neighborhood. Already. So here we started as a neighborhood association. They've gone to other neighborhood associations too, also. But we're not getting the information. You're going and you're just saying, this is what's going to happen. This is going to go 12 miles or down here and that's it. I don't think this is transportation. And we do need transportation. We need transportation for all people, not just seniors, but for all people.
I
And we
think this
don't
would
have
be,
it.
for me, it's gonna
That
take
we
me
might
to the
need a
city with
better
my kids that
plan.
I wouldn't go
I
right
don't
now.
think that taking people just from the airport to downtown is the answer. I don't think that's the answer. Because the people that come in on the airport, we don't know where they're gonna drop them off. We don't know where the station is, where we're gonna drop them off downtown. We're gonna drop them off at the convention center, we're gonna drop them off at City Hall, where are we gonna drop them off? We don't know. Because we haven't gotten that information. Why does it have to be a secret? And what they're gonna do in our,
we have the map of
one other
every
thing,
line
and
that we want.
then I want to.
Tom, I think the difference is,
There's one other thing, I wanna finish what I'm saying.
when we have planning meetings with the
I
city,
said-
Let's do one at a time. Let's just have, Betty, if you could wrap up your comments and then we'll go
Yes,
as people raise their
I'll be
hands so we're
through in
not
just a
talking over
minute.
each other.
I sat and watched TV, and I watched our city transportation meeting on TV, and all of a sudden, VIA said, eminent domain. Now, I'm smart enough to know that in the older neighborhoods, those people don't have money for attorneys to keep their property. This is a serious thing when it touches your neighborhoods, Councilman, because you have some older neighborhoods. We have some seniors that can't fight for their property. This is wrong. When you say eminent domain and VIA told the Transportation Board, you were not there because our mayor had taken you off the board, so you weren't present. But Councilman Courage was present, and he heard them, and he questioned it. He said, what are you talking about eminent domain? He said, we can use eminent domain to do our project. So we're already being threatened by VIA by using that terminology. I am going to fight for seniors as hard as I can. So this is not a good transportation plan or program. I'm going to ask VIA to rethink what they're doing on this corridor. There's a better way. VIA should be our transportation. They should be the people that are transported. But you've got to think of a better way. And I
John,
know
wanna
you can.
Address these, then
Thank
we go
you.
to other questions.
Thank
Yeah, first of all, VIA has no land use authority, so any property that we acquire has to be used
And
for.
say that
for
again, what
public
did you
transit.
say, Mr. Marks?
VIA has no land use authority, so any property that's
Oh, I
acquired
know that.
has to be used for
But
public
the city
transit.
does.
The word eminent domain is a legal term used by the legislature anytime property has to be acquired, and that's 2 inches to a whole piece of property. VIA is not taking entire pieces of property. No one's home is being acquired or taken by VIA Metropolitan Transit for this project. It is in the public easement, it is in the right-of-way, it will be inches to feet, simply used in the public right-of-way already. So that is, no one's home is being taken.
So
The
far.
Transportation Committee asked a legal question, a legal answer was provided. But to translate it into normal everyday speak, we will most likely just work out a solution with the property owner to acquire a couple inches to a couple of feet, and that is it. There's, eminent domain is a final legal proceeding,
Yeah, we
just
know.
like what happened with the bar down in the
That's
alley.
exactly right.
Right.
So with your primo lines.
And that's wrong too.
Right.
When VIA put in their primo lines, how much did you use eminent domain?
No. We acquired some property, a couple of inches to a couple of feet, but we never engaged in the eminent domain legal process.
So when you say you acquired property, you
We
came
worked
to
out
an
a- yes.
agreement and you paid for it?
Yes.
So you did a right-of-way acquisition?
Right.
Okay. All right, you've had your hand up a while.
Yes.
I haven't been to any meetings. Can you explain to me what a rapid transit is? I mean, is this like a fast bullet train thing that goes, can you explain what that is, what its difference is between the buses going up and down the thoroughfare? Will it have tracks? Could you explain kind of a little bit from the beginning what this thing is and what it's thinking is picking up people from the airport and taking them downtown, just kind of real quick. What are we doing?
Sure. I'm going to bring up Art Herrera in a second from our planning department. He can give you but first of all, this line is not in a vacuum.
Did you hear how long he's been with us?
90 days.
90 days. Incredible job. Incredible job. Art Herrera, let me introduce Art Herrera.
Just
I'm
like
John
this
Herrera, no relation to Art,
Yeah.
by the way. I'll introduce it in a very big concept because that's exactly art's our planning engineering. So first of all, this corridor that we have is a major transit corridor. It is a highly utilized corridor today.
Right.
And it's going to be continue to be a highly utilized corridor. It's called, if you can think of it from a perspective of the airport area and downtown area in general, just think of it from that standpoint, connecting those two. Those two, I'm San Antonio native, like many of y'all in here. Downtown has the second highest density of jobs in the city. And number 3 is the airport area, along Air 410. Think about all the jobs that are on 410. So I'll even back up even further to say, most of the riders that ride our service today, most of them by far are taking it for jobs. So the more we can connect people to job centers that happen to be around the airport, I don't want folks to walk out of here thinking that it's people with luggage are going to be getting onto the system. No, that's not the case. We have an express route that's currently running over to the airport today to do that. But this system isn't for tourists. This system is to get to the jobs that are accessible all along this corridor. It's a big job center. By the way, if I said number 2 or number 3, who knows what number 1 is? Who's the highest density in San Antonio? Medical center. Downtown used to be it for the longest time, but medical center is. Well, USA. So from that standpoint, then what we're going to do with the system, this is where Art's going to come in to answer your question 100%, is to then, what's the best way that we can transport folks up and down this corridor in a very timely manner? Time is going to be a big key to that.
Sure. So, good afternoon, Art Herrera, I've familiar faces, met with you all, I think, in the summer and then in the spring as well before that.
Please talk louder.
Sure. Betty, I want to touch your question first. This is a project map that you are requesting. You wanted to know where the line was going through, what neighborhoods it was generally going to go through and touch. So the line starts on the north to the airport. Then it'll come down Isom Road, then hit the San Pedro corridor,
let me stop you. Why are we going to the airport?
The airport's also.
Why are we going to the
A
airport?
lot of jobs at the airport.
There
Betty.
are jobs at the airport. There are a lot of folks that
Jobs.
work there.
Because of the job.
Warehouse.
I just want to know why we're going to the
Yes, ma'am.
airport.
Yes. So it goes down Isom Road and then San Pedro. Each of these dots, and you'll have a chance at the end to see, each of these dots represents a location where a platform will be located. At these locations, approximately 95% of all of the existing ridership on this entire corridor can easily have access to any of these stations. So that was one of the things. When we were looking for a location for the stations, we wanted to make sure that wherever we proposed the station, it made sense in terms of where we were seeing existing ridership, as well as additional activity centers. Where are people working? Where are they getting off to play? Are there social services available to them? Grocery stores? Those are the kinds of things that we take into consideration when we're trying to identify where a station's going. The other thing, though, is where do we have intersecting routes? Where along this corridor does it make sense for folks to get off and make transfers? One thing that I've heard folks say before is, well, you know, who's going to be using this corridor? Sure, those that live and work on the corridor. But the other thing is, a lot of folks are using this major corridor to get to some other destination. They're using it so they can transfer to and from another route so that they can get to their ultimate destination. And so that's why San Pedro and the St. Mary's corridor on the southern end was identified as one of the top corridors for this type of system. To the question about, well, what exactly is advanced rapid transit? It is a bus. It is a bus, a 60-foot articulated bus. The difference, though, if you're familiar with the Primo line on Fred Road, there are stations on the side of the curb, right? Well, similar to that, we're going to be providing those long buses and those larger station locations along this corridor. The difference, though, are those dedicated busways. That's the difference. The difference is also going to be the off-board fare collection. Has anyone gotten stuck behind a bus and you're wondering why that bus is stopped at that stop for a long time? A couple of things are happening. One, it's possible that someone in a mobility device is having to get on board, and it takes some time for that individual to get secured in the vehicle. The other thing, though, is a lot of folks are waiting to the last minute to find their $1.30 fare to make that payment. And if you end up with 5 or 6 people all having to do that same thing, that bus is going to be laying over. Now, sure, it's causing an inconvenience to those that are in the vehicle, but more importantly, the individuals that are on that bus that are trying to make the connection so that they can get on with their livelihood is also delayed. So what the system is doing is, sure, we're going to be providing dedicated busways, but all of the fare collection is going to happen off board now. So now folks don't have to worry about that delay. When the bus stops, you can enter or exit any of the 3 to 2 doors available on the bus without any of that delay. The dedicated guideway, the dedicated busway, is there to help ensure reliability. If there's traffic on the corridor now, imagine 20 years from now what that traffic is going to look like. Meanwhile, that bus's schedule is going to be the exact same as it is today, 20 years from now. So now that corridor becomes much more comparable to regular traffic and becomes more competitive. But what it means is to those folks that are in the bus, the folks that are requiring to use the bus, that need to get to their livelihood and their social services, now have an accessible, more reliable, faster destination to get to their ultimate destination.
But you're leaving something
But
out.
it's-
Yeah.
but
You're
it's-
leaving quite a bit out.
Yes, and I'll get back to it. But that's what it is. It's essentially a bus with dedicated guideway along the corridor. Now, what does that mean, though, dedicated guideway? That means that along the corridor, we're having to repurpose existing traffic lanes to turn them into transit ways, okay? And this is where some of the confusion exists, because folks think that what we're trying to propose is widening the right-of-way everywhere. And if that were to happen, yes, huge swaths of land, and in some cases, the possibility of taking entire parcels would be required. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're working within the existing segments so that we can provide dedicated busways. What that does mean, though, is access management, and it means having to reconsider how general traffic uses the corridor. So in some cases, you're going from 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane in each direction and busway in the middle. In other corridors, in other segments of the corridor, for example, from Almost Drive South to Ashby, because of the historic nature of the neighborhood, as well as the tight right-of-way width, and because there is no center 2-way left turning lane, you're only working with 2 lanes in each direction. We're having to implement what are called business access transit lanes. So very, very similar to the way they operate downtown. You have a bus-only lane, unless you are in a vehicle and you're trying to make a right-hand turn into a business, a side street, a neighborhood. But that's going to be along the, I think that's like a bluish, purplish color segments along the map. Otherwise, this magenta.
Did you say part of them are business streets? And then part of them are gonna have to be widened?
Yes, if you notice that they're.
So out in our area, they have to be widened, but you get to Monte Vista, they're okay, they've got business streets, right? So we don't have to do anything in Monte Vista
There are 3
or
colors.
Tobin Hill.
So there are 3 colors on the map. If it's in orange, it's in mixed traffic. There's no change to the way the bus operates in those segments. If it's in this magenta color, all the runways are in the center. So that means the buses are in the center of the right-of-way. The stations are also in the middle. And there is a repurposing of travel lanes that are occurring in that magenta portion of the segment.
Is that 2 north and south, or is it unit? Is it 1?
It depends on the cross-section. So like outside here, you're gonna have, it's a 7-lane cross-section. You have 3 lanes in each direction and a 2-way left turning lane. What we're proposing is it would be 2 lanes in each direction, and then busway, 1 lane in each direction, and then the median would be used in the middle for platforms.
There'd be 2 lanes in each direction out here. Would there be 2 lanes in direction down in my area?
Magenta.
That's
Yes,
Wildwood.
So this.
Right
Or will there be 1 lane and us only turn to go out?
For
And have you
Her area
taken
is-
into consideration?
Her area is
the
south of
flood-
Bassey.
The flood, that we're sitting in a flood zone, and if we have to evacuate, we're going to need a way to get out of there. Have you taken that into consideration? We're sitting in a flood zone. So, have you taken that into consideration?
If during an emergency anything occurs, the lanes can be used to help any evacuation that's necessary. For emergency purposes, bus lanes can be used. And in fact, to that point, buses could be used to help also evacuate. Because we've done that before, we've worked with FEMA in the past. If an evacuation occurs, they'll provide buses, and we've done that in the past. To your point specifically, south of Bassey to Almost Drive, I just want to be very clear. Yes, right now you have 2 lanes in each direction, and it's way left turning lane. What we're proposing from Bassey to Almost is 1 lane in each direction, busway, and then the stations will be in the center. Now, that does mean access management. That means anywhere you see that, again, magenta, I'm going to say like that reddish color along the map, we're going to have access management. What that essentially means is that left turns to and from San Pedro into the neighborhoods and side streets would be prohibited with the exception of at signalized intersections. And at those signalized intersections, U-turns would be allowed to also occur along those portions. But I want to be very clear.
If we're going south, going home, and we live on that side, we're not gonna be able to turn left.
Correct. You would have to go to a signalized intersection to make that happen.
Okay.
You'd only go
Now,
1 direction.
That's another thing. That's fine, you're gonna do that, but are you gonna fix all the side streets? All house streets?
So
Because those streets are horrible, and can you imagine, everybody's gonna be cutting off
Right.
to get
Yeah,
around that
the
traffic.
traffic is
because
gonna be
traffic's
bad
not
That's
good
a,
right now.
that's a fantastic point, because when we were out in the community, when we were taking all those notes, we were hearing a lot of those comments. We were hearing folks say, okay, if you're gonna do this, I need improved sidewalks, and I need improved streets, because we're gonna be expecting some additional traffic along those.
Of course.
Can you talk to the point, 100%? Also, the improvement to intersections. We're only talking stations right now, but there's improvement for vehicles at the intersections, to your point.
But I'm not talking about just the intersection, I'm talking about the whole street.
Yeah, so one of the things that we did, so I'm leading the overall design for VIA, so I work for Art as a consultant. We looked at kind of the regional model, what that looks like, and then we've counted every single major driveway from 410 through Hildebrand and every side street. So we wanted to really dig into what does that all mean and how does traffic really kind of work through this neighborhood. We see that Banco and McCullough will take some additional traffic. So actually some traffic from San Pedro will move out. And then at the individual intersections, from what we're seeing, there's not a lot of cut through anticipated. And so it'd just be the streets that aren't signalized, you'd have those trips that would
Let me tell you
free
what
up.
streets are gonna be, the ones that have no stop signs, they're just straight from San Pedro to Blanco, have no stop signs between.
And then what we're actually
They're gonna use
improving.
the most because it's a quick, right now they use them and you should see our street. It's like the moon. There's so much pothole. No one comes and fixes them. We've already petitioned for it. The bumps are falling apart. No one fixes it. We've already signed petitions and stuff like that. We're still waiting. Now
So
you're gonna
we've been
add-
working with the
add
city
more
on
traffic
that piece, and then
to our neighborhoods?
let me come back to the side street question in a second. And then we're making some significant improvements at Hildebrand. Right now it's failing. And so we're actually widening Hildebrand so it'll go from level service F failing, right? The traffic goes down underneath the bridge. That'll all get cleaned up because we're changing how the lefts kind of go work. So it'll actually go into a really good level of service, so how it operates. And then we added a signal at El Monte too, because there was that section that we heard about. It was a little bit longer, so that way we can make sure that the U-turns and access do work. And we've been working with the city closely on their traffic modeling, and the traffic report now is online for review as well. So we've been working that, and then the ILA process is probably something.
I have a safety question.
Yeah, you've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
So my safety question for Via is, you just mentioned that at Almost, they're going to, since it's a 2-lane road or 4-lane, you're going to be taking 2, right? Your buses all down San Pedro are in the center lane, as you have converted to a raised median, right? For understanding. You're saying that your long Primo buses are going to cross over to the outside lane for business access all the way south, right? So my safety is, if I'm in that lane and your bus has to cross in front of me, already I have tons of traffic coming up and down San Pedro, because what you didn't account for is south of Acton, we have a lot of car dealerships. And we have the big rigs that park on the side of the street. So now, not only do we have, let's be real, 7 lanes up here, you're taking 3, you're converting a 2-way north and 2-way south, right? Correct? Okay, south of Acton, we have 5 lanes. You're taking 2 and the center, you're converting it to a 1-way north, 1-way south. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Then further south, you're going to keep it as it is, but you're going to switch your buses to the outside lane.
That's correct.
So you're telling me that your Primo bus will have 6 doors, 2 on the right and on the left, and you're going to cross them over, right?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Yes.
From a safety perspective, as the commuters are trying to get downtown and you're pushing all this traffic into 1 lane, how is that functional when you have an extended bus, which you said was approximately how long?
60 feet.
60 feet. So now we as commuters have to make room for the bus to switch from the inner lane to the outer lane, all while being safe,
Yeah,
correct?
yes.
Is that, okay.
That's
So
correct.
can you explain what the
Absolutely.
safety part of that and how did that come into effect?
Sure.
Because that makes no sense. From a safety perspective, that's what I want.
No, understood. And I can take you to a map eventually, but let me just try my best to talk about how we make that transition, because that's a great point. Because we're going from magenta to, again, like this blue, forgive me, I'm putting it wrong, but because we're making different transitions, we're going from center to curb, and then from curb back to center, how the heck is the bus making that transition through intersections? Well, one, it's only going to be happening at a signalized intersection. And when that bus needs to make that transition, it'll have a special bus-only phase, so that the only vehicle making a move through the intersection will be a bus by itself. The rest of the traffic would hold, and that way you're not having to compete with the bus, with vehicles, and vice versa. But that's how we want to make those transitions. And we, actually, I put it on the consultants, what the consultants are tasked with, though, is working with the city to ensure that when that happens, what's the level of service at that intersection? Are folks going to get penalized if they're in their vehicles because now they're having that special phase to get through the intersection? So what they're...
If I can just interrupt,
Yeah.
when we're talking about level of service, I just want to be really clear that that's basically just like how congested it feels. So if you, I'm sorry to the engineers, but I'm
No, that's right. Go.
So when we're saying like level of service at F, that's like just absolutely stopped traffic, to A, which is like very frequent. So I just want to be really clear because you keep going to.
Okay, yes.
And then on the Q jump, usually it's about a 10-second phase, so it's fairly short, and so that will get that bus out and operating. So you're.
What does Q jump stand for?
So like Q of queue of a lane, and then, so a bus phase, so but you'll have a signal phase just for the bus.
It's a head start
It'll
at
get
the
a head start,
intersection.
yeah.
So it'll get the green first, the bus clears, and then the rest of the traffic.
Yeah, and it'll
On mixed lanes.
Yes.
On mixed lanes, yeah.
Yeah, it'll only trigger when the bus is there.
Did you have follow-up questions on that?
But Chief, I have.
We're in the Crown Hill Park neighborhood, and this is the first that, and it was actually because of Betty and Councilman Bravo that our neighborhood association heard about this meeting. There's been zero outreach from the, for our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is going to be affected for several reasons. One, we'd like to know what the coordination is between VIA and TxDOT in light of the 281 and 410 overhaul. Because TxDOT is going to be shutting down the McCullough Street Bridge. So that is going to prevent our neighborhood from exiting or entering the neighborhood via McCullough. We're going to be ended up routed either San Pedro or we'll have to go down Jones Wellsburger. The closure of the McCullough Street Bridge not only is going to affect our neighborhood, but it's also going to affect Shearer Hills, all of the neighborhoods that are over there, because they're also now going to have to be forced to come on to San Pedro and then gain access to 410 at that point. What, if any, coordination is going on there, and what steps are also taken to protect the pedestrians that will be coming from, because we have a lot of neighbors that walk over the McCullough Street Bridge to go to the VIA North Star Center. Once again, TxDOT is taking out that traffic light at McCullough, so our neighbors, including elderly and we have some high school kids that ride the bus, they're going to be now going into, during the whole construction phase, I anticipate there's going to be some overlap between VIA and TxDOT when all of this is going on. What measures are going to be taken to prevent not only the greater impact of cars on San Pedro, but also pedestrians who now will be forced to go onto San Pedro?
Correct. So the first part of the question, the coordination with TxDOT. The coordination with TxDOT is actually a requirement because there are sections along the corridor that TxDOT owns the right of way. So it's their responsibility, and we have to make sure that we go through them to ensure that they bless all of the plans prior to us even talking about going into final design. That's specifically there underneath 410. Everything underneath 410, that section of San Pedro, it's actually controlled and owned by the Texas Department of Transportation. So when we originally talked about plans through there, it was through the coordination with them that we actually ended up leaving the entire section there in front of North Star Mall exactly as it is today. So they've also provided us schematics for those improvements that you were just talking about, where they're going to be making modifications to McCullough. They're also going to be making some modifications here at the intersection of San Pedro and 410, and then they're making some modifications with the on and off ramps. So what they've asked us to do is essentially, look, here are the future plans. I want you to match those future plans, and you don't touch anything within the TxDOT right-of-way. And that's exactly what we've done. We've ensured that whatever it is that we're going to do is not going to prohibit TxDOT's plans or give that any issue with what it is that we're planning.
But that's not really my question, though. What are you doing to protect? Because it seems as if the city and TxDOT, when this plan went in, when this started way back in 2017, the city basically rubber stamped it. There was no advocacy for the neighborhood and how impactful this is going to be. Because TxDOT, in effect, is planning to turn the access roads basically from east of the airport all the way down towards Blanco. They're going to be de facto traffic lanes where the speeds are going to be reaching 60 miles an hour. That's what the posted speed limit will be. We all know it's going to be higher. There's going to be fatalities. We know it because of this design and the lack of communication between the city. Now we've got this other project, and TxDOT is all about, well, this project will help commuter time, but they don't care, and it may also, what I'm hearing from a lot of other individuals,
they don't care about the impacts on the people that have to deal with this day by day. So by that I mean, y'all are saying that this is going to, and I support this project in theory, because I'm a big public transit advocate. I support it in theory. But given that nobody from VIA has reached out to RNA, I don't know if y'all are really understanding the impact of the closure of the Public Street Bridge and how much traffic truly is going to be diverted onto San Pedro.
And just to piggyback on that, we've told you over and over and over that we do not support this project. You were at 10% schematic when we first came. And we told you no. We said no because you don't know what's happening here. And then, sure enough, you guys proposed this project without even realizing that the city at the almost Creek, the bridge, they narrowed it. So you're proposing, we're gonna go ahead and put a station here when there's no longer a center lane. So then now you're gonna have to rebuild that bridge or widen the bridge, right? Because they just did modifications to accommodate for the shared use path that they put in, which took out half a lane on each side.
It did.
So there again is the whole coordination.
Sure.
You aren't communicating with us. You're just saying, hey, this is what we're gonna do, even though we've all voiced, and I'm sorry you didn't get any information, but we've told you over and over, we do not support this because of the impact to the neighborhoods, to the people who actually live in the area, who commute every day in this corridor from north to south. And we offered you, hey, why don't you go back to the program that y'all had in place with the $1 million plan of limiting to HOV lanes from north to south on 281. And we hear you, we understand that this is a great project, but you're not listening to us as the residents, as the people who live here. We do not appreciate you keep coming to us, asking us for our opinion, and I've talked to a lot of you over the course of a year and a half, and we've told you no, and you guys keep coming back to say, hey, we modified it. We understand that you're modifying, but the lack of communication with the residents, the lack of us giving you our input, and you refuse to accept it. We had 16 people at a table with Mr. Art, and we sat there, and we told him no. We told him we don't appreciate, we do not support this plan. But yet here you are again, and you're like, oh, we're going to environmental clearance to process this, so this can move forward. But when is our voice enough? When is our voice enough for you to say, hey, let's take a step back? No, what did you do? You guys went and found funding for it. So as citizens and concerned people who live in the area, who work in the area, who are always here, are telling you no. And it's a new person.
Same thing with CPS.
Some of us cannot hear what you're saying.
I know you got, you guys came out to our clarification, and you presented this, and they said, don't worry, they were rushed because they were leaking somewhere else. There's, we're gonna have follow-up, we're gonna have communication. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything. Not to mention, we got invited here today. We got invited here today.
We've got a gentleman back over here that should be.
Have you guys even invited the local businesses that it's gonna affect? Did you even get buy-in? Maybe you could have gone to the businesses and say, hey, if your customers ride our bus.
I think we can, if I can answer that question, sir, we have been reaching out to the businesses, and they are all just about.
We have somebody back here that's like. Oh my God!
And I'd like to know what neighborhood you're representing because you've done outreach.
Cracknell Park, they've been sent there. Yeah, and there's been no outreach.
Okay, we will get you on that. I don't recall seeing your name on the.
Okay, 90% of the people that live between Blanco and McCullough would say they do not
Come
want
up
this.
front, please come up front,
No,
so we
no.
can hear you.
I've lived in this area for 50 years.
He's saying you don't want.
All
you
of,
don't want it.
up and
Please
down
come
right
up
here in
front,
San
Danny,
Pedro.
so we can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. My name
I
is
am
Danny
hard of
Petrie,
hearing.
and I've lived here, and I'm a CPA, and I have lots of. I know Gary real well, but this project sounds a lot like a client that came into me that worked for the VA hospital. That he worked in the administrative area, and he saved them a bunch of money. And then at the end of the fiscal year, they decided, you know what?
we need to make sure we spend all the money, because if we don't, we won't get it again. So what they did was they went out and bought 70-inch TVs, okay? And that's what they did with our tax money. And this, I think a lot of this has better solutions. If we're going to go downtown, if we want to be rapid transit downtown, then go downtown. The ridership on San Pedro is probably, what, 3,800, maybe, okay? When it's not pandemic. When it was pandemic, there's nobody riding the buses. Right. This is not really helpful it's detrimental for the traffic, for all the residents, and for the businesses. And right now on Broadway, you have businesses that you're paying because of the construction right now, because some of them are my clients. And I know this. And this is not acceptable for y'all. You'll keep on having meetings, but you don't listen. And I came to meetings before too. A lot of people have. And you have a branding issue with VIA. VIA, yep. I had a person that worked for me, okay, and they wrecked their car, and they had their vehicle, and she was a single mom, and I said, you know, and then she had their rental car taken away. And I said, just use the bus, okay? And you come in an hour later, leave an hour earlier or something like that. She lived in the medical center, okay? And you know what she told me? This is a while back, but she says, that is so ghetto, taking the bus. And she did not do it. And she stopped coming to work, and I let her go because she did not show up. And VIA has a branding problem. Okay, and nobody is going to the schools and saying, will you ride our bus? Let me tell you how great riding our bus is. None of the youth are riding bus. They're Ubering and everything else. You could be spending your money on vans helping the elderly get to places that they want to go. Yeah. But I'm sorry, I'm on a little bit of a rant, but I have a lot more to say too, but I know other people have things
Give
to
your
say.
3 points. Give your 3 points about
one
this.
One of the things is that the traffic will be...
At a bus stop to get on the bus.
I just want to say
but the
that
traffic will be delayed.
employees at the businesses that we've talked to would like to ride the bus. But
okay, I can tell you, I can name 5 of them that I've talked to that do not want this.
It needs to be rebranded.
They don't have any other means of transportation, is what we've heard. And this is
Okay.
Then ride a bus.
Okay, so first off,
we don't need to stay in the middle. It's not frequent enough.
okay,
So
this will slow down traffic.
We don't even know what this vehicle is going to look like.
So there's fewer lanes. You have to take a left to get to anywhere on San Pedro. That's going to be detrimental to businesses because people just won't want to stop because they have to take a left. They have to take a left at the light, and there's the traffic's backed up all this way. The buses, the lights are going to be synced to the buses, which means it's not going to be synced to the traffic. So that means there's going to be even more delays.
It'll be like Bandera.
And you're going to have lots more people traveling across the crosswalks, or they're not going to be crossing across the crosswalks because there's so much traffic there. They're just going to be walking across down the center right here, like people do, and there will be a big safety concern. But y'all don't listen to any of that. No. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys.
So Raymond Zavala's had his hand up for a while there.
Hi, I'm Raymond Zavala, and I've attended several meetings with the VIA representatives. I can tell you that right now, confidence is lacking on the VIA leadership. Why? Because they lie. I don't want to use the phrase liar, liar, pants on fire, but it applies to VIA. When I had the first representative, we had the meeting, I asked him if he rode the bus. He said, no, I don't ride the bus. Then why are you trying to sell me a plan that you don't even believe in? By the way, how many of you employees here from VIA ride the bus? Raise your hand. Show me your card.
They get free cards.
I need proof. I can't just take your word for it anymore.
I don't actually have a car.
Okay, well see, what's that? Maybe 2,
3. I don't have
4,
many.
3. Okay?
You said 90% of the.
Another thing.
Do we have one conversation at a time?
Okay. To me, safety and communication are the top priorities. When I asked that gentleman that came to the Open Terrace Park Neighborhood Association meeting, I said, can you provide me the names I don't want numbers, I want names of the people that you asked that wanted this plan. He couldn't do it. That's why I asked you for your cards. Secondly, when we met with the board at their board meeting, I asked the same question. How many of you will ride the bus? Out of all the board members, one young lady went like this, and everybody kind of looked down at her. Why? You want us to buy into this plan, but you're not willing to take the bus yourself? I mean, that's not right. And then you don't communicate with the communities? Listen, all you got to do is do it social media. I mean, a lot of us don't have computers. Then we ought to, since you all have so much money on this project, maybe you all ought to spend some money on postage and send out flyers.
Exactly.
Because we don't know unless we find out ourselves. And that's not right. I wouldn't sell you a house if I didn't own a house in the neighborhood. Thank you.
And can I just make, and
Patty.
I've talked to many of you at some of the meetings, and my name's Councilman. I just want to say.
I can't hear you. Can you talk louder, please?
Oh, sure.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything this gentleman said. Y'all should have had a microphone already.
Okay, well, I apologize for that. So what I just want to say, is that yes, and I have been to some of the meetings, and today is another meeting to meet with you all and to hear things. And I will say that the feedback that has been provided, we have heard a lot of that feedback, and we've worked directly with our team. I'm looking at Tom, but we've intersection by intersection, to try to make sure that we're listening and addressing. I mean, today it would be challenging to go through like every single thing, but I'm sure that Tom could provide at least, I don't know, 10 or 15 changes that he has gone back to make the plan. So we definitely want to hear from everyone, and we definitely have taken that feedback. On the other end of the spectrum, just, not wanting the project at all, that's also feedback. And we can also hear that feedback, but I can just definitely tell you all, because I'm working with the team every single day, that we have taken things back to the drawing board, and we have made many changes to the plan since we originally went out. So I just wanted to comment on that, and I think we're going to go.
So this woman with the bees on her sweater has had her hand up for a while, and then Patty, and then you.
Thank you.
When we first started this meeting, you all did say, tell us specific things that you are concerned about. And we all have many of those. But I think one of the major failures here is that none of us are convinced that the concept of the buses in the middle with a median, which is profoundly affecting not only the businesses here, but the residences there further south. It is a huge change in one of the major business corridors in San Pedro. No one has even convinced us that that concept is viable. We don't believe that it's going to work, that it's going to accomplish faster buses without, maybe it will, make them faster, but we don't believe that that balances out the effects, the negative effects that it has on this entire area. So can you convince us?
And I mean, that's,
I get the skepticism 100%. This is the first time that we're introducing this concept to the community.
Right.
It's never been done before in this community. First time this bus rapid transit has been introduced to the community, this concept.
No.
But it exists in the United States in 32 other, or even 36 other different capacities.
That's not our neighborhood.
We don't care. I know y'all don't care, but we do, because we see what happens. We see what happens in terms of those other locations. Houston, Dallas, 2 other locations right down the road that have these things. I know that's kind of what we're fighting here. I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing. We're fighting something we don't know about. So what we can do as VIA is go look at others in a similar circumstance to us to say, okay, what happens to traffic when it's in front of businesses? What happens to businesses that have a bus rapid transit in the center lane going down it? What happens to residential streets? Are they overwhelmed with vehicles?
Yes.
We have examples like that we can go and actually look at. Some of these systems have been around for 20 years. And we can gather a lot of good stuff from them and bring that back. So from that case, I know it's, again, first for us. And we're going to be criticized.
But why are you using San Pedro for a guinea pig? Use another street.
Why
This
didn't
is
you
crazy.
do the
They
east
tried
and
Broadway
west
already and got shut down.
And why didn't you do the
Oh,
east and west side first?
That's not true.
Go back to Broadway.
Because the councilman didn't let you, it's
Go
why.
back to Broadway.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Fredericksburg.
That's why they didn't do the east to west first. Because the council person out there in that district stopped it.
Can I add? So I'm kind of the, I guess, outsider. I've worked on a number of these other BRT projects. Albuquerque's one that was one of the projects I worked on. And one of the things, the other benefits, there is improved safety. So
I don't think so. No. Our neighborhoods are going to be inundated with cars.
The streets are narrow, and you got people parking.
And
on
we're
both
close to
sides.
San Pedro, so there will be cars lined up there trying to turn to the right, to the right, to the right, in front of my house. I don't want them there.
Cross on the streets that have no stop signs to go from.
Exactly.
Can I get through the bullet points? The other big thing with the median, there's opportunities for additional landscaping to kind of really make it a more, a better street environment.
We don't care about
Talking about beautification?
We don't care about
We care about safety, not how it looks. We care about safety.
Councilman Bravo, I just want to say, I do appreciate you being here today, and you and I had a conversation about this yesterday, so you are here listening. I would say that this is a meeting that just came up out of nowhere by Betty and her neighborhood putting it together, not by VIA. I appreciate you all being here. But to your point there, Greater Harmony Hills, which is going to be at the very tip of Sierra, VIA recently came down, starting at 410 north on Blanco all the way down to Wurzbach Parkway, and started putting in all kinds of bus pads and bus stops, and all of a sudden we've got construction all the way down. We were never, ever notified of that. We're a registered neighborhood association. We've been a registered neighborhood association for 25 years. So it would have been nice to have gotten a little heads up so we could help the community adjust to all of that, but that was never done. The same as here. Even though we did have some community meetings, they stopped and they went nowhere. Now, maybe COVID did all that, I don't know. Greater Harmony Hills is part of, maybe some of these other neighborhoods are part of the Greater Airport Regional Planning meetings. Those meet every month. Every month we meet with the city planners. We discuss a big picture idea of how should the city in your area be planned. But that's not done here with VIA. So I think it's just really bad communication, which leads to bad feelings about you, which leads to we don't want to ride your bus now. I get the neighborhood is changing. We are now part of an urban concept, Greater Harmony Hills is, whereas we were like the premier suburban neighborhood to be in. So that changes, and I've said this many times, we can adapt, we can learn to do that, but this makes it all very, very difficult as association presidents, and I would like to see more respect of that, because we are here to be partners with you, and with the city. But when we get no information and we get a lot of this ourselves, then we're not helping anybody anywhere. And I think then the services aren't really well used. So if you could figure out how to be a little more friendly, come to our neighborhoods or reach out to our neighborhoods. We're on the registry, so we're definitely there, and start talking to us.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, and I set that up. But
Yeah, she
the
did.
city sets up the planning meetings, and they meet monthly. They're good 2-hour Zoom meetings. So I think the same maybe might be a little more helpful so we can understand everything you're saying, understand the concept and how it affects other lives other than our own who drive cars, because my mobility upgrade to me is to take my 2014 car and make it a 2022 or maybe an electric vehicle. But instead, I've got to adjust to this to help the neighbors who need it in my neighborhood, but I don't have a good concept. We haven't had good meetings to help us all plan that through. These are excellent questions. Crown Hill, they are smart. They understand their streets and their neighborhood. And I think it just behooves you to really sit down with neighborhoods and listen to what they understand. We are on the street level. We feel it, we see it all the time. But I'm not here to fight with you about it. I want to be able to mitigate it for everybody and start being a part of what could be exciting.
Patty, you're
Thank
exactly
you,
right.
Patty.
I mean, because I came to VIA and you and I have known each other for many years, now we have an open line of communication. But that can be, this office is here exactly for that. I mean, TxDOT did the upgrades on Bldg Road, because they were updating their ADA on there. So, some of that was, we were left behind on some of that as well too. So,
and in all fairness to
Okay,
Tom
I
and
believe she's
myself,
going to
we're
speak
brand
next.
new, so
All right.
we just started, so
All right.
it is time to get out there.
Well, welcome. It's good to see you again, and we know your efficiency from the city.
We'll get to you, just give us some time to get
I know, but you're in a hurry. It's going to be
Well,
now.
and if you could slow the project down, pull it back a little, start having neighborhood association meetings
All
again.
right, this woman's had her hand up.
Okay, Lisa's going to talk to us, and I've asked her to stand up.
Traffic is an issue all over the city. And I don't understand where you've come up with the numbers. Do you think there's gonna be enough people swarming onto this thing and zipping down San Pedro when we already have the buses, and instead of messing up our lives and our ability to get from one place to the other? I don't even go up and down Bandera. I hate Bandera. It doesn't move. And that's what you're gonna create for San Pedro. I don't understand where you think all these people, who are all these people that are going to be on this bus? Have you figured out how many people are you looking at, and why wouldn't they just ride the buses that currently go up and down San Pedro anyway?
Y'all haven't
That's what I
addressed
don't
that.
understand.
Yes.
Improve that. Make it so there's more, if this is, you're trying to get people from here to downtown, then just improve the bus lanes that are already existing instead of spending millions of dollars. You have an immigrant center over here somewhere. I mean, these people, we have so many people in need. Our city does not need this.
No, that's right.
Don't want the traffic.
It's hundreds of
don't
millions.
want it.
And if we're going to do this, why didn't we go further? I've got one more question. Why didn't we go further? Why didn't we just go to the airport? Why don't we go all the way out to District 9? I'll tell you why we didn't.
They wouldn't know.
Because it would be stopped. Because the people wouldn't let you do it. So it isn't fair to come down into this area and do these people when you don't do those people. And it is not fair. This is not a fair. You need transportation, yes. You need transportation. It's very important. That's how we circulate money. Is by and if seniors could spend money, if you had door-to-door transportation, let me tell you how much money could be spent in San Antonio. We've got seniors that can't spend money right now because they have no transportation. If you had door-to-door, which we presented a plan 10 years ago to VIA, but Jeff Arnett wouldn't let it go through. So we presented a plan on door-to-door transportation so people could get out. This won't work. You're doing a plan that won't work, and you're tearing up neighborhoods with it. It is wrong. It is definitely wrong. I do not know why we didn't do the east to west first. Let's try that out over there. Because they got together, their councilman got behind them, they had meetings, and VIA's backed off. But now we're over here doing this thing, and it's wrong. It's not fair, and we're not going out further. We're not going out past the airport. We're going to get all the jobs from the airport. No, I don't think so. I don't think the airport has that many jobs that it's going to travel this. Now, if we're using it to go to the airport to take people downtown, you got a problem there. So they're going to get off the airport, we're going to take them to a hotel. Why not make the hotels get some vans out there to get those people to their hotel? We're a convention center and get this money circulating instead of pulling some You're not gonna get on this here and go downtown. It's some station, we still don't know where they're gonna stop downtown. They're gonna have their luggage, they're gonna get on this, whatever this vehicle is, which we have not seen yet. But whatever this thing is, this new train that you're trying to put in, will take them downtown someplace, drop them off, they got their luggage, and they're in San Antonio, and they're new. They say, now where's the hotel? Where was Commerce Street? Where was that hotel over there on Alamo? I don't know. So then, they've got to have transportation wherever you drop them off downtown to get to a hotel. So that's not solving it. That's not solving the people coming in on the airport. So please consider, if you're gonna do this, I want you to go all the way out. Go all the way to the end of San Antonio, go straight out San Pedro.
1604, there's
Go all the way,
business.
that's what you wanna do, and tear up other neighborhoods besides our neighborhood. We're doing an unfair thing on the inner city. We're doing it very unfair, and we pay taxes just like anybody else, except it's harder for us to pay it than it is for a lot of other people. So please don't take advantage. Please.
Okay.
I'm asking Via to take a second look at this plan and do something else. I'm bringing our councilman forward so that at least he'll get behind it and he'll see that the people don't want this in District 1. He is our representative. He's not on the transportation committee. And when Via mentioned eminent domain on TV, as I'm sitting at home and watching it, Via telling me we can do eminent domain. And no, you want to go in and take things away from people that Via, you're not branding Via. You're making them look worse and worse and worse. Please don't do that. You are a transportation person. We do appreciate you. Please appreciate the people that ride the bus. Please appreciate your seniors and your taxpayers. And we'll do the same for you.
Thank you, Betty. So Lisa had just asked, she said she doesn't feel there's enough passengers to justify this route, right? And so what information do you have on that?
So as long as I've been here, I've been 16 years here, and even before then, we have been improving the transit
Nobody
service.
rides in my neighborhood.
I'm talking about us doing it through a couple of different ways. There are actually two routes on San Pedro today. And I don't know if folks realize that. There's Route 3 and Route 4. There are two routes. We're paying for two separate routes to provide good frequency. To your point, because we've been throwing services where it's needed. But now we're at a point where we can't afford to just throw more buses. We need to find ways to be able to provide a more reliable, faster trip. And that's using those dedicated busways. Because we finally come to a tipping point, so to speak, on San Pedro. If we're going to invest more, we need to do a capital project like this that's going to include dedicated busways. And yes, there's traffic today.
Are you saying the buses are full? You're saying you're at a tipping point. Are the buses full? That there's not enough buses going on right now? Or?
So, I think you might have been, you were asking about the daily ridership, right?
Yeah.
Even before COVID, you were being fair. Even before COVID, what was the daily ridership? It's over 6,500 people there that are taking this course.
On San Pedro.
On San Pedro, because we had those two routes. So remember,
yeah, I would like to see that, because I can sit in my truck at the corner and watch the buses
ride
go
with
by.
my neighborhood.
I challenge you to ride with me. I'll ride with you.
So-
Go count them.
So what does that mean in real terms on a bus? How many typical bus going down San Pedro, how many seats on a bus, how many filled?
So we typically have 37-ish seats, depending on the model of the bus, on every single vehicle. Typically, we're using 40-foot vehicles. What we're trying to do is essentially say, right now, we have, I want to say it's 8 to 10 buses an hour that are passing on San Pedro during the peak period. And those are 40-foot buses. And essentially, we want to replace those now with 60-foot buses. So if you think about it, we're now using one route, bigger buses. We're trying to consolidate that service as much as possible so that, one, we become more efficient with the service that we're providing. But at the same
Would you drive
time,
2 or 3 people on the bus?
but at the same time, providing the same capacity on those buses throughout the entire quarter.
But we don't need capacity. Are they being? You're saying that we're at a tipping point. You're saying that their buses are full right now.
You're saying that there are trips in that bus that they are full. We're having to use what are called spacer buses. If there's ever an issue, we have to send another bus out to assist with the route. Because here's the other thing, reliability is huge. It's a huge problem. Because yes, it may not be us that are using the bus every day, but the folks that are, they just need to get to their transfer point. Because if they miss a transfer point, they're having to wait 30 to 60 minutes.
But so you're weighing reliability versus people's quality of life here, and that's what you need to understand.
I'm talking about quality of life for the folks that are riding the bus.
But we're talking about the property owners that pay the taxes around here.
I use San Pedro every day to travel. I live north of the airport, and I get to the downtown using the corridor. So I know exactly what we're talking about.
So out of 37 on a bus, typical, how many are filled on that bus on San Pedro?
I don't know, 30, 40% full.
Well, if they get off so many stops, they could look full one stop and empty the next. I mean,
But-
you never know.
So you're talking about 12 to 15
We're talking about
out of 37.
also consolidating those stops.
They're full. We
I
see them
would've
over
watched
here.
them
We
two
go.
That's a
people.
very good number, because remember, this ties into a full system, right? Let's remember that. So again, pre-COVID number, I get it, but my goal is to get back to COVID numbers. 37 million rider trips a year. 37 million rider trips a year. We celebrate the airport being a very successful airport. We have 3 times more traffic than the airport does in ridership traffic. That's how often this system is used. And this integrates into an entire system that we're going to get back to the 37 million trips. We will. And we're going to start surpassing that. Because we have to provide a quality system. Why do most of us drive in here? Is because the quality that we have out there is options. You're not wanting to get a bus because of either how often it comes by or how long you have to stay on that bus to get to where you need to go. We're trying to shorten that for the folks that are taking the service today. That's that equity part that we talked about earlier. And then also, maybe we'll attract some new customers as well, because that's also a big reason why we're doing this.
You're competing with Uber and Lyft.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's.
And to be honest with you,
To
people
be better than Uber and Lyft, we have to shorten that.
People would rather pay Uber and Lyft to get to where they
So, yeah, Jack had his hand up, then Kelly, then the woman with the bees over here again.
Okay, Mr. Councilman, you have some numerous problems with this thing. A moment ago, you mentioned, what was the number, 6,800 a day on San Pedro?
Pre-COVID, before
Okay,
COVID.
well, 6,800? 6,500, okay. Now, what percentage of that is, I mean, how does that compare to all the vehicle motorists that travel up and down San Pedro? Well, I guess that's maybe 1 or 2%. Maybe. I'm sorry, you put that in perspective, and you see, and you want to increase this by how much? Is it going to be anywhere near something decent? Say 10 to 20%.
In travel time?
No.
Travel time? I'm sorry.
Maybe
Talking
we
about
could
the
do
amount
some
of traffic
surveys
that's
in
going
our
up and down San
neighborhoods.
Pedro, he's
See how
saying
many
that
people ride the
maybe
bus.
via travels maybe 1% of the people up and down San Pedro, where vehicles are the main way people are traveling up and down San Pedro.
Correct.
You see what I'm talking
Yes,
about
I
here?
understand, yes.
Okay, that even if you try, you were somehow were able to increase this 2 or 3 times what you had before COVID, that would only be, that'd still be less than 10%. Less than 10%. I'm sorry, the numbers do not justify that. You've also got other problems here. The very fact that you'll be, what about the motorist who decides to veer into the HOV lane? The motorist, yeah. I mean, what's to prevent motorists from just driving in that lane and slowing down the buses, the HOV, rapid transit buses that travel in that lane, therefore stopping, taking the word rapid out of advanced rapid transportation. Do you see, you have no, it may be quote unquote dedicated, but what's to stop any motorist from veering into it? And you're gonna, I don't think you're gonna put cops on every corner there. I mean, before hard cops, before they're normal, big crimes. So no, that is a gigantic obstacle right there. That plus the fact that you disrupt the traffic for a motorist who genuinely wants to turn left on San Pedro. And yes, we right now we still fortunately have enough motorists who will turn left successfully. But if you put this thing on there, that's not how you realize you're not supposed to make life more harder for the motorists as they try to get to where they want to go with their vehicles. Yes, no, you don't want that at all. But that's what you're going to do with our tax dollars. And back to this, the motorists who are in that lane. Well, say you complain about this to a traffic cop. He sees a motorist do that. He gives the motorist a ticket for veering into that lane. He takes it to a judge, and the judge asks the motorist, "Well, why do you think you should be justified for going into the VIA's dedicated lane?" "Well, because, Judge, I paid for that lane with my tax dollars." Yes. Judge says, "Case dismissed." You see the logic here? No, I'm sorry. This thing is fraught with problems. Now, the big thing is you're having little meetings like this. I simply call it, as you say, as with someone who frown on these things, they call it filling the slot. Filling the slot. So, okay, we had a meeting for that neighborhood, on to the next one. Just so we can tell the feds who we get our subsidies from that we had neighborhood meetings and we had neighborhood outreach and so forth. Well, I'm sorry, that doesn't cut it for us who have to suffer for this in the future when this thing gets built. Now, now the thing is to say, obviously this thing looks like a done deal. I mean, why bother having neighborhood meetings if it's going to be done anyway? Now, Mr. Councilman, you as a member of the city council, you vote on VIA board members routinely. Now, what are you going to do about this? Do you have the power to say, "No, I don't want this"? Rest of the city council, I don't think we should do this. It's obviously a bad thing. Too many people have complained about it. We should not do this. Do you have the power to simply squelch this project? I doubt it.
I don't have the power to squelch it. First of all, I'm not here for a check the box that we had a meeting. I've got over 2 pages of notes so far, and we're still going. I'll probably have at least 3 by the time we're done. But what I have the power to do is advocate on your behalf to get concessions out of you, to get them to see are there things that they can change to help meet, to help preserve the quality of life in your neighborhood and the traffic around your homes.
Mr. Bravo, how can you change a concreted lane for a bus with concrete barriers as shown in the
I'm here to hear your concerns, to get your feedback, and see what we can get them we can get them to modify the plan so that it better suits your neighborhood.
You can't modify it. The streets are narrower.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why isn't, I looked at some other rapid transit systems, and they say that if you have as many stops as are on San Pedro, then it's not really a rapid transit system. And then why don't we just go down, if we've got a bus stop right here, why don't we go down 281 to downtown to meet up? Right. We already have that, I think, but I don't know why that's not an alternate solution than going down San Pedro. So nobody's talked about that.
Why aren't you
Nobody
trying to do what
that
Elon Musk was proposing, I guess?
That's a different topic. But I will to your point, there are tiers of transit services. So the fastest tier is express service. So right now, and I think John mentioned it before you walked in, sir, was that we have an express route that goes from the airport straight to downtown, nonstop.
Right.
So that those folks that are travelers and they're tourists and they want to get to their hotels, there are stops right there by the, I think it's Travis Park is where they can get off, right there. So there's nonstop service for express route. The next is rapid transit. So here's what's different between this and a typical bus route. There are many bus routes in our service area where if you were to step out and stop at a bus stop and look down the street, I kid you not, maybe 600-700 feet, there's another bus stop. And then after that, there's another bus stop. And so what's happening is, all it takes is one individual to wait at one stop, another individual to wait at another stop, and now you're talking about folks that are on that bus now having to stop at every stop so that they can pick up a passenger, right? What this is doing, this is where the rapid comes in, sorry, it's taking me a while to get there, is we're consolidating stops. It's essentially fewer stops. It's not express service. Express service is almost door to door, like one stop to the next.
But you can do that without doing anything else.
And we have. So remember when I talked about us having two routes? We do have two routes. The first one is local service. We stop at every stop that's on San Pedro. The one that's on top of that, well, that's how we describe it. The one that's on top of that is limited stop. So there are actually fewer stops than this one right now. And you know what? It's not. We're ready to make a bigger investment now because it's not cutting it for the passengers.
So we had Kelly next.
It's not cutting it. They're not full either.
If I may, you just contradicted yourself. You said people from the airport that work downtown are going to take this route. Well, why not just direct them to Express where they don't have to go through this route?
That's a good point. So let's talk about travel patterns, right? Not everybody is living downtown. And so what they're using the San Pedro corridor for is because they're trying to get from other portions of the city to San Pedro so that they can get to the airport. Otherwise, what we would do is we would have to force someone that's over here to get into downtown before they get to the airport. Now they can take crosstown service, transfer there to Massey, for example, because we have a route that goes on Massey, and now they can shoot up and get to the airport faster. But what's more important, though, is now they don't have to worry about waiting and scheduling their trip.
But those could be different express stops. I'm sorry, those could be different express stops. You know, and I think what we need to stop doing is following what other cities are doing. And let's be leaders. Let's be leaders. Get involved in the community. Get involved with the businesses in the area. Everyone is going to affect. And let's start from the ground zero. Instead of saying, let's take this cookie cutter, let's put it here. This is exactly what we're doing. Let's be leaders. And let's stop following what they do in Phoenix. Let's stop following what they do in Dallas. We don't care.
I completely agree with you in that I don't want to go and copy Albuquerque, and I don't want to go and copy Indianapolis. What we're actually doing is when we go, what did not work for you when you implemented this? Because that's not what we want to do. I want to take what you've learned and then improve it with my service. And then eventually what will happen, 5 years later, someone's going to come to me and go, okay, what did not work for you because I'm about to do the same over here. So yes, I don't want to copy them. We're doing our best to learn from them.
But when you start from the ground up,
what's his name?
This is who you've got backing.
I can't hear anything.
Art Herrera.
I've heard everything you said so far.
Remember the trolley project?
Sorry?
Remember the trolley project, east, west, north, south?
The streetcar project, downtown, yes, sir.
You remember that, don't you?
Yes, yes, sir.
We voted it down. You want to know why? Because we didn't want it. Because we were going to reduce the streets and cause more damage to the public. This is the exact same thing we're saying about this project. We do not want it. You say you're going to eliminate some of the bus stops. That's fine. You can't tell me by looking at me that I am an amputee. So now you're going to force me to go further than I have to because you're going to eliminate some of the bus stops. So, okay, I'm an amputee, and now you're going to punish me for it? I call that bullying, fellas. Thank you.
Understood. I think to your point, what we're doing our best to do is identify areas that we can improve those pedestrian amenities for that very reason, sir. Especially those in mobility devices that are using San Pedro. Even though there are more stops today, San Pedro's not exactly a very pedestrian-friendly corridor. And so what we would like to do, working with our partners at the city, is identify locations where we can make that additional investment so that folks can use and be a pedestrian more safely.
Well, there's a lot of pedestrians crossing the Migrant Service Center.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Kind of piggyback on their concerns about the impact of the side streets and the cut-through traffic. We recognize that is going to happen, both during the construction phase as well as when people get frustrated waiting at the lights, something happened with the bus. What commitments can we get from VIA to help fund improvements for ensuring that streets impacted by cut-through traffic, and most of them already are F streets.
Right.
A significant
F
number
streets.
of them are F
Yeah.
streets. Some of them will be up on, hopefully be brought in on this last bond, but all of these take time and planning. So we've got to have that coordination of making sure that we identify, and one of the first things that pops in my mind is perhaps 1 to 2, 3 on either side of a light. Those might be the ones that are most impacted by cut through. So let's identify them as being streets that are, let's make sure we've got funding, start the design phase. That's where I think that in understanding the frustrations of individuals is that VIA needs to come to say, yes, we recognize your real world experience is often different than what a map or a design parameters are. And because of that, we know there'll be cut through. We're going to help work with the city to identify the streets that we think might be most impacted by cut through. And that's where it comes in, where Patty was talking about, y'all need to reach out to the neighborhood association because we know the streets. We know the traffic patterns better than anybody else. You can have engineers come out and they stand on a corner and they do their little, calculation. It's not real world. It's like TxDOT telling us when they're cutting off our access and, oh, you're just, it's only going to add 1 minute to your trip. And it's like, in what world are you living in? Because, again, they don't live in the neighborhood, and they never got the input from the neighbors until it was too late. So I think having that, having VIA and Councilman Bravo has been wonderful in working with our neighborhood in because we're going to have cut through as a result of the TxDOT, right? He's been mindful of that. He's gotten us together with Public Works, but I think that's where y'all can work with his office and saying, hey, let's meet neighborhood association president, find out which streets do you think will be most impacted by this, prioritize it for upcoming bond or just regular street funding.
Yeah, and Kelly being from Crown Hill Park can talk with experience about the cut-throughs because they've had so many cut-throughs in their neighborhood, they've actually had to close off some streets.
Is this going to go through regardless of what anybody says? Is this going to be passed regardless of what anybody says?
So let me go back to her question real quick.
Well,
because
you can answer my question.
Let me go back to her question real quick, because one of the things that we have been working on, and there's some plans to work on, and Julio lives here, works here, and has been out in the field too about some of the side street work that you have looked at.
So we're coordinating with San Antonio.
Speak up. Speak up.
We're coordinating with San Antonio. The San Antonio has a 5-year paving implementation budget. They've also
Can you step over here so Betty can hear you?
Thank you.
So,
Speak a little slower, please.
That's hard. We've been coordinating with San Antonio. The San Antonio has a pavement rehabilitation budget, annual budget. We've been looking at where the community has told us that the side streets are not adequate for your new trips, as you can't make left turns, some of the side trips. We've also had commitment for the San Antonio for them adding budget to that in these areas to work on these side streets. So as we continue our exploration and as we continue these meetings, we have been writing down when you tell us that your street specifically looks like the moon. Now, so in that aspect, we are identifying areas in and around, immediate and next to where these improvements need to happen. So we are listening to you when you tell us about those side streets, and we are working with the city of San Antonio to get funding as appropriate to fix some of those streets and then continue to fix them as the project goes on.
When are these meetings?
our meetings with the city of San Antonio?
No, with the citizens about those.
Well, I've been present about 3 of these meetings now, 3 or 4 of these meetings. Okay. And other meetings that occurred that I haven't gone to, we've been collecting notes and we've been collecting all your comments that you put in on all our roadblocks. We've collected every single one of them, and we have our what we need to do to accommodate and to help with the concerns that you have for us. So not just me going to these meetings, but the whole team is going to these meetings.
I can add to that the city, in conversations that I've had with the city manager, he's committed $10 million for improvements along the corridor for areas where they're needed. And so that's going to be set aside for over 2 years.
So do we need to give you our information so you can come to our street? We have little parks on our street, and we know that whoever needs to run to try to get the light 2 streets down for us, they're going to come around, because in that park area, Mandalay goes into 2 streets. The young kids drive through there like they're crazy. Now this is going to make things worse.
There's an opportunity to continue working with the city of San Antonio on making improvements on those very sensitive areas to slow down traffic, to calm traffic, so they can go at the appropriate speed. So the conversation's not over.
Okay, good. We're reading.
The job kind of on our design team is really to go to these meetings and bring that technical information and then bring it back to the
We have speed bumps, but it doesn't matter to anybody. They just fly right over them. To hell with
There was some discussion about speed bumps too, or if you want them or not. So I think that's where, in the next phase, we have another year and a half if we get approval to get through some of these additional details.
But even if you put stop signs on Breeden to slow them down,
they still don't stop.
These kids don't stop. They don't care.
Okay, so we had this woman with the bees, and then the gentleman with the black jackets had his hand up, and then you in the corner again.
I want to go back to the question that I asked before because I don't feel like I got an answer. Can you please explain in detail why the center median model is faster, better, cheaper than improvements to, say, an outer lane model?
So it's happening at a diamond lane.
What is it? Diamond?
Downtown lane. Downtown transit lanes. I think Mr. Finger might have actually helped make the point. If a vehicle is in front of you, you are now slowed down by that vehicle. Right? That makes sense. Well, if vehicles are stopping to make the right-hand turns, or they're using portions of that lane to make the right-hand turns, the bus is now having to compete also with those vehicles. In the center, there's no competition. It is all bus. There are no issues with cross traffic. There's no issues with folks in the lane. No issues whatsoever. And yes, there's going to be an advantage when, if this is open in 2027, there would be an advantage to that. But I'm thinking 10, 20 years from now, the amount of time that it will take the bus to travel between the airport and the downtown in 20 years compared to vehicles would stay relatively the same. Whereas you would expect, even without this improvement, traffic's going to build, right, throughout the entire corridor. Just over 20 years, we're a growing city, we're very successful economically. Well, that traffic is going to start delaying. It's going to take longer for folks to get up and down to downtown.
I've lived here for 50 years, and it still takes me about the same amount of time to go down San Pedro to SAC if I need to, from where I live.
So I'm just going off of the existing travel demand model and the forecasts that are saying an additional 1 million people are moving into the city. There's going to be impact to traffic.
But they're not moving into our residents because our residents are already here.
San Pedro really doesn't see that much growth because there's a lot of, as you're saying, it's kind of fixed. The San Pedro area is a little bit fixed. There's some growth that we've anticipated in the models, but not that much.
This paper that's going around.
It's mine.
I don't know. Oh,
Okay.
it's yours?
Yeah, it's for Betty.
Okay, my question is
For Betty.
I think a lot of people have brought this up is people don't see the benefit of the increased ridership that y'all say that there's going to be, and that it's really worth the $300 million that y'all are going to spend on this project when you can spend it other places. And I see that people have a lack of confidence in VIA. One reason is because they aren't told, and we have I don't know how much it costs for the parking lot that's out on 281 that
25 million.
People drive by, people don't see anybody getting off there. And so
right.
you have something that costs probably, what, 40 million? I don't know how much it costs. Nobody, how much? 27 million.
Plus the improvements of the highway.
Yeah, $27 million for that facility, and nobody's using it.
Right.
And why would we think that what you're promoting for $300 million is going to make anything any better for anybody else? You have a branding issue, and you don't address what you already have, and you're just pushing more and more down the residents and the businesses here on San Pedro. And you still haven't addressed how this is really going to help the residents and increase the ridership, and by how much, and why that's so important.
So the reason why this is going to be different is of reliability and frequency.
But reliability is you say that word a lot of times, but it's not any more reliable than the buses right now.
The reason why the buses right now aren't as reliable as this system is because they have to stop for traffic, and they have to share the lane, and they have to stop for every rider to fill out, get their money out, pay. They have to wait for someone to file. They have to wait for everybody that gets on the bus. There's a time that it takes for a person to go up.
Reliability is not the same word.
So the reliability.
I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to talk or not.
I'm sorry.
It's not a meeting. It's a community argument. It's what it is. So I'm just taking my turn anyway.
Go ahead.
I live close to that Mandalay thing right there. If you're going to build a bus stop in the middle of the street, and the bus is going to stop there and let people off, and you've got this street funneled down to half of what it was, then these people are going to have to cross that street. There's not a light there. That's not safe at all. And I agree with this lady here. I don't remember her name, but that is not going to work for us. The people who live in the neighborhood and stuff, it's just not going to work for us.
Right. So no matter how much we
to your point, sir, we are looking at putting in a stop bar at that location, putting a rapid flashing beacon or a hybrid beacon.
A what?
So a pedestrian, a signal crossing. So pedestrians will press a button, they'll walk across.
At every one of those?
Well, when you say every one of those, we're talking about 2 locations?
No.
No, I'm talking about like the one in Mandalay.
Mandalay.
The mid-block that's using the station away from a signal light. There's 2 of those in that location? But those
So they've got to walk down the middle of the road there for several blocks before they can cross into go home.
They'll walk to the protected crossings and then walk onto the station. The station will only have one opening.
People in danger there because you're.
We don't even have sidewalks.
With me, walking is a
Get
problem.
to work because especially it's down in one lane. Okay, they're trying to get to work or school or whatever it is that they're trying. Especially these young kids. Okay, they're trying to get to work and everything. They're not going to slow down for someone crossing the street just to get into the middle to catch the bus.
We would expect them to stop at the red light.
No, you would expect them to, but let me tell you, they will not. Even driving down San Pedro, you take a chance turning left or turning right, no matter what, because of the way people drive. And you're expecting everybody to slow down on one lane? It ain't gonna happen. It's gonna get worse.
We do have a traffic model. We do have a traffic report. The traffic report has been peer reviewed by the city of San Antonio.
I don't see the safety in that because of the fact that you're gonna have people. I'm disabled, okay? If I have to walk to the bus stop, from my house to the bus stop, but the bus stop, instead of it being at the very end of my street, it's 3, 4 blocks down. So now you're gonna make me walk 3 blocks up and then another 4 blocks over to get to the right spot, to catch the bus.
90% of the ridership is within 1,200 feet from the station.
It just makes no sense. I mean, and then you're gonna expect me to cross the street to get to that median in the middle with traffic. I mean, that's like playing Frogger.
So the only thing that I would say is, imagine that individual that's having to do that, but now they're crossing 7 lanes, they're crossing 5 lanes.
I've seen it.
I know.
And we've
it's very
seen
dangerous.
it.
It's very dangerous.
It is dangerous. Even walking at the light.
Correct,
When you take no crosswalk at the light,
Yes.
I've done that.
Right. There's not enough time.
At the light, and you still have to take a little run for it because cars are not gonna stop.
I agree, and this woman at the end of mentioned it, there's not enough time to cross. So picture this, so right now, as it is today, all of us are gonna go and get on this bus stop that's in front of the building. We're gonna go out to downtown for a trip. We're gonna take you out to dinner. We're gonna go downtown.
Yeah.
On the way back, yes, on the way back, we're gonna stop across the street, and it's gonna be mid-block now. Now we have to play Frogger's version with traffic that's doing 50, 55, 7 lanes. Now imagine, Bill, we're now having a middle station. There's a platform in the middle of the road. Now granted, we're still having to cross the street, right?
Now you can't
But
see.
now what we're doing is we're essentially crossing 2 lanes of general traffic, 1 dedicated bus lane with an operator in it, professional operator, our operators, and then the platform. But you still have the same amount of walking time to only cross those 3 lanes instead of 7 now. So now you get your bus, you're in your lane, traffic has stopped because they're generally at a signalized intersection. We go downtown, we come back. Well, this time, again, we're only crossing 3 lanes instead of 7. Our passengers are not having to play Frogger at one time as they do today because the platforms are the same.
So you're encouraging jaywalking though by doing.
No, this would only
That's
be
fine.
done at a signalized crosswalk.
Are you saying there's an employee at every platform?
No, just like today, it is just, we're trusting you to follow the law. But we're now providing an opportunity for every pedestrian at a station to use a signalized crosswalk. It's right there.
But is there a person, a VIA employee at every platform working full time?
No, sir. No,
Okay,
sir.
you said one of your employees. Okay.
On the bus. On the bus. I apologize. On the bus.
I've just got one more thing I want to say. Can we get a different map so that we actually know where this is going? This is kind of murky. According to Highland Hills on the other side, they sent me back a message. And I agree, you really can't tell where this is going. The other thing I want to know is what's going to happen to the underpass on San Pedro.
Right.
I would like to know what's going on there. Monta Lisa Paris would like to know. I would like to know what's happening there with this coming out. We've got an underpass, and the train goes. The train. The other thing I want to know is what does this train look like that you're getting ready to put on here? I've never seen a picture. And are we going to have security at these stops? Are we going to have people out there waiting with no security in all these different places along here? We've got a lot of things going on right now in San Antonio. So will we provide security at these things that are going to be in the middle of the street? And would the 3 of y'all mind saying who you are, identifying yourself, and what you do with VIA? I don't think I heard any of your names, and I'd like to know who has been talking to me, please.
Sure.
So can you answer those questions?
Yes. First one?
Yeah, underpass.
Okay, the underpass, we'll do that. So, because it's an historic bridge, and there's a railroad that goes over it at the underpass.
The railroad is on top and the underpass is here. What's going to happen?
It's an historically eligible bridge. We're not touching it.
You're not going to touch
We're
it.
not going to touch it. We're not going to touch it.
So what happens to
the bus in there with traffic?
Just like they do today, buses go underneath it just fine today. And we're going to maintain that.
That's playing Frogger right there with your cars. Because if a bus comes through, you have to kind of move over a little bit, because they just go by and grab right through. There's only 2 lanes there, so we're okay if the underpass. It's just when we get out further, we've got to dedicate, we've got to take the road away. Had you ever thought about the police department, the fire department having dedicated lanes? So that they could get to the fires and to the problems that we're having?
If anything, they now have access to use those lanes to get.
No, they're going to have access to use what lane?
The bus lane.
There won't be the bus lane in the center?
Yes, they'll be able to use it. Emergency vehicles.
Okay, do you have a picture of whatever this thing is?
We've
never seen it. Does it make noise? We're next to the train. We already have a train that goes right next to our neighborhood. So now
we've got a train here, and then over here, we're gonna have all this other on this side. What about the noise?
It looks just like our primo vehicles, our 60-foot vehicles.
Look at,
So it's electric?
It's, well, no, so as of right now,
one of these for us to see?
we do have some in operation today, 60-foot vehicles. There's the compressed natural gas powered, they use CNG. So the majority of our fleet is compressed natural gas. So these new buses will be no louder than the
We've got one somewhere we can
Yes,
see.
yes.
Do you mind introducing
Sure.
yourself
My name
and
is-
what you do with VIA?
Sure. My name is Art Herrera, Art Herrera, and I serve as the Deputy Project Director for
You do
Advanced
what?
Rapid- Deputy Project Director for Advanced
Director
Rapid
Project?
Transit. The Deputy Project Director.
Okay.
Julio Ramos, I work at WSPUSA, and I help as a
You do what? Can you speak louder?
I'm very good at asking that question, sorry. My name is Julio Ramos. I've been living in San Antonio for 17 years now. Went to UTSA, I've lived in this area. I work for WSPUSA, who's a consulting firm for VIA. My expertise is doing roadway intersection improvements and safety improvements for pedestrians and bystanders.
And this gentleman I could hear all evening.
Tom Hiles with WSP, so I'm leading the overall design, working with Julio, and I work for
So
What does
is your name?
WSP stand for?
Tom Hiles, I'm a transit engineer, so working
You're
on
what?
Transit engineer.
Transit engineer.
WSP stands for what? Just initials? Just initials? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And I'm glad that you're the director, and I'm happy that you're the engineer, because those are the two people I want to talk to. During your lunchtime this week, or maybe next week, take a trip down to the southeast corner of 5 Points. I don't know what brilliant guy designed that, but when there's a stoplight, it turns green, and you got 3 VIA buses lining up. You can't make that right-hand turn onto Fredericksburg Road. That was a very bad and unsafe idea, and yet we were never told about that. It was just built there. Go ahead, take your lunch down there, sit down on the bus bench and just look at it. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, because we use that spot as layover, not layover, to change out drivers. So I know exactly what you mean, because it's right-hand turn only or buses, right? And you can't make the right turn of the bus. Right. No, sir,
And you have to wait 1 or 2 lights before you can go. See, that's a disastrous thing, you know, that was put there. It endangers people.
Okay, I have a few questions. Ready? Your traffic report that was based on 2015 to 2019, where can I find that traffic report and what the counts are?
So it's
What a 6,000-page thing.
So it needs to get approved by the city of San Antonio's traffic department, but it will be placed online.
Okay, because you said earlier it was available, somebody said it was available online.
It's if you go to keepsamoving.com and you click on
Keep SA moving.
digital assets, scroll down, digital resources on the art page, you'll find, it's, I think, the first PDF that's posted. There's a slider on the bottom that has all their documentation that backs up. And so if you'll click on that first one, you'll find it.
So you said there's 2 bus lines, the 4 and the 5.
Yeah, 3, I'm sorry,
3 and the 4. Okay, so you're saying that 3 and the 4, one's a skip, right?
Yes.
And one is hits every bus.
Correct.
You're saying that 6,500 people ride, approximately, people ride your buses, right?
Daily.
So, right.
Pre-COVID, not now.
So you're saying 30 to 40% of those, right? Or 30 or 40 increase is what you're saying, a 30 to 40% increase with this corridor coming in. Is that correct? Okay, that was my question. That's one. So you're saying, for the lady in the back in the brown, you said that 90% of businesses agree with this corridor. I want to know what your number is, because I could easily say 10 people said yes or no, and that's 100%. Or I can have 3 people at a meeting and 2 of them say yes, and then you have 66% saying yes. Okay. So I want to know the exact number, because you're throwing 90% out, and I could easily say 8 out of 10 don't want it, and that's 80%. So I need your number exact. Or approximate.
Over 200
but they don't know this.
Yeah, I mean, they're like,
All right, so 12 miles of corridor. Thousands of people, thousands of businesses. You're telling me that out of the 12 miles of this corridor, 200 of those that is what you have, and 90% of those. So you haven't really talked to them. You haven't even made a dent in the number of businesses that are available. Right. So you had 4 meetings, and you're basing your 4 meetings. No, we just not very 4 meetings. 3 meetings. Well, you had the overlay, the integration to that, we've gone door to door. Right. Well, here's the thing, and I understand that, but when you come to a neighborhood, when you have 700 people in your neighborhood, and only maybe 10 of those people heard anything that has to do with your transit, the ball fell short with your PI team in hitting those residents. You might have done a mass flyer, a door to door, right. So then that would have been, again, that's an idea of how, okay, maybe this didn't work for here, because if you went to a public meeting and you only had 10 of us, and you're saying you hit, a couple hundred houses, that's a red flag from the PI standpoint, saying, hey, this approach didn't work. So you should have gone back to the table and tried to figure out what approach would have worked, right? Because we have a lot of elderly residents south of that. One. So you're saying that you had 3 public meetings or 4 public meetings, and out of those 4 public meetings, you get just a very minute amount of the actual residents that live, businesses that work, all those, your stakeholders, your constituents, those people that you should have reached out to, right? They should have had a voice. So you failed to provide an adequate way for people to provide input. And those who have given you the input, and Mr. Armetta has been at many meetings, so we've had a lot of these discussions. So out of those meetings,
definitely, the feedback, Celeste, we did 40,000 flyers on a half mile on each side of the corridor here, postcard. But I hear what you're saying. You're saying, maybe a postcard didn't work, 40,000. A lot of social media, maybe that didn't work. Ads in the paper, maybe that didn't work. So let's hear, what's a better way to do it?
Hold on. Before we get to your approach, moving
But
forward.
you were asking about the approach.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm saying
You were
it
criticizing my approach.
Right, it didn't work, right? So now we can move forward.
Well, we had a lot of folks that showed up. You were there.
Was he talking about the entire corridor or just a certain area? Or just talking about north and north?
Talking about how to reach people in the whole corridor.
The whole 12 miles. That's unfair.
When we've gone to some of these businesses, they said, oh, we had an opposing group come and we're for the project, so we threw away their literature. And that is what we're getting.
No, that can't be.
It was me.
When I was speaking of your
That's what we heard. I'm just repeating what we heard.
Okay, so what I was wanting to say is those approaches didn't work. Why don't you take this back and really reach out to these people, create a whole different approach to maximize the number of inputs that you have, because we're trying to, the last thing you want is people to be opposed to your project, because as people who present this project, you want advocates for your project, because those people are going to go and tell to other people and say, hey, this is a good thing. Right. But concept is great. I get it. I understand it. But we are tired. What I'm getting is we have these public meetings, we have this public engagement, and every meeting that I've attended, we've had people try to voice their concerns, voice their opinion of not wanting this. And so when I translate things to dumb it down, let's be honest, there's words that y'all say that y'all throw out there that some people don't understand because we're just the average Joe, right? So when I try to translate certain things, because I'm a little more knowledgeable to certain things, that bridge is not connecting. It's just not connecting. And so my questions are, okay, from a project standpoint, you're saying that all of these data numbers, this information, y'all are 90%. What's the schematic now? And so we've talked to you guys and we've asked you these questions and you guys provide it, but then y'all talk to us like, hey, this is already a done deal. But you're not willing to hear us out because we tell you over so much before we have to ultimately say, we tried, via one, they're gonna get what they want, they're gonna get the project, whether we want it or not, it's gonna go down our throats, right? Because that's the feeling that I get from here. And I get that feeling from every meeting that I've attended. And I've told you guys, and I've talked to you guys, and I don't know what else we can do, because at the end of the day, at the end of these meetings, no matter how many we have, we will not have enough power to say no to VIA, because every time we say no, you guys fail to hear us. Because we can say no, 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 and bring you comments, and bring you our safety concerns, and our, just the feeling, okay, it's a feeling, it's not a fact. But take all of that into consideration. Go back to the drawing board. Try to figure out another route. But y'all aren't even willing to do that. And I know you guys are hard, and y'all work hard on this project, and it's a lot of time and investment, and there's a lot of money that comes to trying to find the funding. But look around. Look around. When is enough enough? And when is our voice as finally going to be heard? As neighborhoods, as commuters, as your own neighbors. You guys, some of you live here, and yet you guys still don't want to hear the neighbors speak out and say, hey, we really don't like it. We really don't want it.
Just real quick, the lack of business should be an indicator. You don't have a majority.
Okay, I'd like to speak on behalf of myself and not my neighborhood association, okay? I am for this. I will be the voice of opposition to all of you in here. That's fine if you don't like other cities done things. I lived in Dallas-Fort Worth. When my husband and I were dating, I did not drive to his home in Dallas a single time from Fort Worth. I took TRE and DART. He never drove to my home in Fort Worth. He took DART from downtown Dallas to my home in Fort Worth. It was like that the whole 2 years we dated. And then we took a bus from our DART station to the individual place we were going and walked the rest of the way. He and I could not have been more excited to find out that this was happening.
But you're listing one fraction of a percent.
We'll take a poll in here.
Sir,
Mario, why don't you take a
I
poll?
have my turn to talk. You had yours.
That's fine.
Thank you. I understand everyone's concerns because honestly, I have those too. I live right over here in Shearer Hills between McCullough and San Pedro. Something we're working on as a neighborhood that Councilman Bravo, I think you are aware of, is trying to get bike lanes put in on McCullough. So now I'm like, oh geez, how is all of this going to affect that? What's that traffic flow going to be like, etc. I see this as both a blessing and a curse. It's going to be great for the people who do use it, who want to use it. Once this is available, assuming it goes through, I know my family will use it. My husband and I would love to go downtown with our kids. And if both of us happen to have a cocktail, I know we can get home safely. We don't use Uber or whatever those other services are. They're available to us now. We're not going to use that because we have kids, and I'm not going to haul a car seat in someone else's car and get it out at whatever restaurant I'm going to, put it back in someone else's Uber car. I can get on this bus, on this train with my whole family and go do something, which would have been awesome during COVID. Yeah, I know we're not technically in COVID anymore, whatever. These numbers that we're talking about that were pre-COVID, they're gonna go back up. As people get out more and more, this will be utilized. And I understand people don't like public transportation. It's kind of already been stated by a couple people, there's a branding issue. Oh, it's ghetto. Well, that's your own personal opinion. Maybe if you used it, you would have a different view.
I do have used it.
Okay, well then perhaps choose a different word than calling it ghetto.
I didn't call it that. I said that's what my employee told me.
Well, then don't repeat it because it's rude.
It's the truth.
No, so it's not the truth. It's a perception. This isn't ghetto.
Perception that's out there.
Okay, so people want to use the bus when it's available. I don't think those people are ghetto. If they need to use the bus, awesome. I'm glad they have a way to get to work, to get their children to school. I'm glad there will be a new opportunity for some of us to go do things and get places. And yes, there are concerns. There are always going to be concerns. But we have to start somewhere. And who's to say that maybe this is a huge mistake. Maybe it's also a huge success. And this community is growing and is moving forward. Do we want to be part of that?
No. It's a big risk for $300 million.
Exactly how we are.
But
those of us who drive cars are gonna be stuck in traffic.
There's already traffic. Okay, hold on, that's another
Not out
thing.
here.
I live here. I watch this all the time. Okay? There is insane traffic. And the way
It's
people
6
drive,
o'clock.
if we can move it down,
It's 6 o'clock. Look, everybody's moving. That's not gonna be when they take up all these lanes. That's
when they
gonna
take
stop.
up all these lanes and they
Yeah,
force people to slow down a little bit, I think that's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be fantastic to not have to worry about trying to turn out of my neighborhood.
Why don't you take
Why
a
did
call?
we leave Dallas if we liked it so much? Why did we leave Fort Worth if we liked it so much? Why come here?
I got a question, Rudy. Can you give a timeline?
Because of
Every-
jobs.
Well, I can end it.
Yes, my question to you staffers are, what hours of the day is this advanced rapid transit going to operate? Or is it going to be parallel to the via buses?
That's a great question, Mr. Figures. So the first bus we're expecting to pull out of the yard around 3:30 in the morning, and then return back into the yard the following morning around 1 a.m., 1:30 in the following morning. So there's really about 3-hour turnaround to get these buses back out into service.
Well, I mean, at what hour of the day, what minute of the day will it hit the street from the garage?
About 3:30 to 4 a.m.
So we'll travel from the 3:30 and 4 p.m. a.m. It will be on San Pedro.
Yes, sir.
And what moment of the early morning hours will it leave San Pedro?
Around 1 a.m.
Okay. Okay, so about for 2.5 hours out of 24, that's not running. And of course, for that matter, nor are other via buses running. And so, sadly, if a person was coming home from a party or something late at night and they failed to catch a bus that would even transfer, you got to transfer to it, especially if you don't live near it or are attending an occasion near it, you have to arrange for a transfer from another bus route to get to it. So it's really, if it's not 24 hours a day, if it's not, especially if you live next to it, that could be problematic. Also, the gentleman over here, I forget your name. Julio. Okay. Earlier you mentioned the idea that you were going to, the idea of using so-called traffic calming to help slow down traffic and so people can cross the street or and so forth there, you see. Well, please understand, I know what traffic calming is. And I joke with people all the time saying that traffic calming is not somebody getting out in the street saying, calm down everybody, slow down, waving your arms. No, that's not traffic calming. Traffic calming is actually reducing the number of lanes that you have in either direction so that you have traffic jams.
We're talking about traffic calming on the side streets. So in the neighborhoods that people will have to change their time to access the city lights and such. In those neighborhoods, we're talking about concerns that people have that their people that were driving recklessly. And so for those purposes, we're talking about traffic calming. We're talking about traffic calming in the city.
Well, please understand, I can see where somebody from the outset might think this is a good idea, but as I have seen so many times with so many other what I call boondoggles, is because those who may have been in favor of it have not been hurt enough by it yet. And to where soon after they experience it, maybe this wasn't such a good idea to spend $300 million of our tax dollars. And this is what I'm getting out of it. No, I think this is a bad idea. Like I say, add those two reasons on to the others that we have presented here tonight.
I think it's probably time to wrap up. We're over 2 hours now, but I just want to tell you.
And I've got a couple of things to say before we close. So.
Hit it, Betty.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening and being here endorsing your opinion and letting our councilman know how we feel and what we feel about whether you're to or whether you're for it or against it, whichever way. And I want to thank VIA for having us and hosting it.
Yes.
And I hope that VIA will take into consideration the things that they have heard here tonight. We certainly appreciate it. We appreciate you opening up your facility to us. We're proud to have this out in our neighborhood, by golly. And so we want to thank each and every one of you, Thomas Marks, the board, these gentlemen that I just met tonight, and everyone. We want to thank our councilman for granting us this evening to come and listen to us. I'm sure he has other things, but since he was taken off the Transportation Committee, I felt that it was very important that he know how his people felt about what was going on in the transportation. And I'm sure he can't make every meeting. I'd like to do this with this group. Some have gone home a little cold. If you want to raise your hand if you're for this, for what's going on. Okay, we got one. And if you're against this.
Okay.
Okay. See, the majority is against it. Okay. I want to thank each of you again, those that I made phone calls to the neighborhoods. And this isn't about a neighborhood. This is about building our city. And it's very important. It's about transportation. It's about the circulation of money and jobs and so forth. It's a bigger issue. And we hope that Rio will take into consideration the things that have been said here tonight and take a hard look at this before any action is taken on this 12-mile whatever it is, whatever they're
Corridor.
calling it.
Corridor.
So, thank you again. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Betty.
We're going to wrap up just because we're well over 2 hours. I'm going to have some quick closing comments, though. I think what I heard from a large majority of the people here is they don't want the project, right? I didn't have to need you to raise your hands to know that. What I also heard is if you do the project, don't utilize eminent domain, right? I also heard that you don't want to have areas where you're coming out of your neighborhood where you can't turn left. I heard concerns about cut-throughs in your neighborhoods.
Correct.
And that
we have bad
that there's going to be more traffic through your neighborhood. And I heard you ask that if VIA is going to move forward with this project, will they help provide some funding for improvements around the corridor and side streets? I heard an ask that in the future, will you mail notices for public meetings? Because not everybody is using email and social media. I heard that, the airport does a good job with regional planning meetings. I think, did we try to get them?
Yes, yeah. But they do meet. They do meet once a month.
They do a great job with regional planning meetings. So yes. I heard an ask for VIA to consider looking at that as a model on what to use. And those are some of the big takeaways I had. So just wanted to.
Before you wrap up, would you give everybody a timeline of what you give a timeline of what we're looking at here? Because there's been a lot of questions.
One other is that will VIA you couldn't hear all the speakers, so in the future, will VIA have a microphone?
Yes, absolutely.
Great, okay.
Did he give a timeline?
He's going to.
Okay, so we still are awaiting concurrence on the environmental document. So the Federal Transit Administration has to approve the environmental document for VIA to move into the next step. Let's say that happens. If that happens, final design is going to occur over the next year and a half, and construction would start sometime around January 2025, with service opening in 2027.
Has it already been approved?
No, so the environmental document has not been approved yet.
No, has the project been approved for construction?
The project,
to go forward? Will the city council vote on it?
No.
Will the public vote on it?
The public voted using through the 2020 Keep San Antonio election. back in November 2020. It was that funding.
But was this project spelled out in that vote?
No, it was WideNet. It was saying, if I remember correctly, in November, what was it? I'm gonna bring up.
November 2020.
Yeah, but stated that on March 17th, Jeff stated that on March 17th, in a meeting on March 17th, 2022, that VIA voters approved Keep SA Moving plan at a 68% approval on the November 2020 election. Although the one thing he left out was they didn't identify a corridor, they just cast a wide net saying, hey, we want to improve transit.
In the election documents, the North Corridor was in all the election documents. So those are still online.
Yes.
And the KeepSanAntonioMovie.com website. Go look at the election materials. They had this corridor.
So
y'all started with Broadway, and they turned y'all down.
So
Broadway is not a VIA project.
So as far as VIA is concerned, the project passed with a November 3rd, 2020 vote, changing the Eckert Aquifer Authority tax over to VIA in the ADT.
First goes over to the city. The city has it
Right.
now for the ready to work.
Right? And then it transferred, after 5 years, it would transfer to VIA. You're saying this project was approved within that vote?
The project was in all the campaign materials, that along with Better Bus and also what we call VIA Link. That's the smaller vehicles that we have out in some of the suburban areas. Those are also part of that 180.
A suggestion to you would be that is a hidden, it will come off as a hidden agenda. And it's very important that VIA get out in front and saying how this was passed, because 98% of the people are going to say, this is a guess, but 98% of the people, they're not going to realize that was part of the vote. This actual project was approved.
Yeah, we did great. VIA actually did publish the document if you went, and it's required by state law that bond projects of this, they have to use that specific language. So they actually did pass it. And I agree with you. Probably a lot of voters didn't look beyond that.
Was that language on the ballot?
No, it doesn't have to be on the ballot.
It was identified, I think, in the board.
So I have one other question.
No, there's nothing in there.
90%
Sneaker.
of people don't want this that live around down San Pedro.
They learn from
Is
city
VIA
council.
willing to say, no, we won't do this?
Yeah,
Yes or no?
I don't think that's a yes or no answer, because
It is a yes or no answer. You say 90% of the people don't want this. Are you going to do it regardless?
That may be an assumption that you have in this room today, but I don't know if that's a reality in the court. I don't know. And that's
Can
why
we start a petition?
Yes, you can.
Well, that's going to happen anyway.
A petition?
200 feet, within 200 feet of the corridor.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. We got a lot of input.
Who's
Yes.
the senior ranking VIA representative here?
Julio.
No, that's funny. Here.
You want me to throw that away?
You got it?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
What is your name?
Danny Petrie.
SAFA board member.
A what?
SAFA board member,
Oh, really?
San Antonio Family Association.
Good, thank you, thank you.
I got out on a little rant. I didn't get all the things I wanted to say out.
Well, you made some good points.
Everybody did.
So, I think we need to do something real quick.
Me.
No, you did good. You did very good. And you put it together. Let's get your points out right now, because I got battery life left. Sit down here by Betty. Danny, come here real quick. Bill, nice to meet you. Patrick Von Dolan. Yeah. If he needs to leave now, I can get you right on. Wait, Danny, come here. I got it. Seriously.
Did you get your car battery yet?
No, I have not yet.
Okay. Just take a glance at this at your
Okay.
convenience.
Sit down in the chair for me, please. Thank you. I took several pictures. I'll send them to you. So this is Patrick Von Dillon reporting live for the San Antonio Family Association at the VIA Advanced Rapid Transit meeting held at the request of Betty Eckert, and neighborhood meeting. It's at the new VIA office at 7067 San Pedro, just south of the Migrant Services Center, which is interesting. They chose this location, and we'll show you the maps that they have displayed here. All right, Danny. Sit down here with Betty real quick. I'm going to take a little video of y'all. You can give your points. Keep it to pick 5 or something. Pick 3 or 5 or something like that. And so all of you, we got people watching, and so we're going to take a little interview with Betty Eckert, who set up this meeting, and with her for her neighborhood and everybody that's on San Pedro, and Danny Petrie, board member of the San Antonio Family Association, who's lived in this corridor for over 52 years. So let's do some takeaways real quick on what you took from the meeting, and what are the points that you need to make again for people.
One point is you never talk about how long it's going to take additional traffic to get from, say, North Carmel to downtown to SAFA, which I would say that it would probably take an extra 10 to 15 minutes, additional minutes. So instead of a 10 to 12 minute drive downtown on San Pedro, it's going to take a 25-minute drive. They don't say anything about that. Apparently there's been no studies, or they would have said something about it. Or it's a negative, and they don't talk about any of the negatives, and people don't go out there and they're not sharing some of the critical idea or thinking that's criticizing what's going on here, because they won't share that with anybody else. And so they just, when they go and they ask people, you know, that they approve this, it's because they're not really sharing anything else other than they think that it's going to be more reliable, which means that to them, more reliable means that it's going to get there faster. It doesn't mean that the buses aren't showing up and they're full. They're not full. Apparently they said there's a tipping point, and they're at 38% capacity right now. So I think that there's
on a 37-passenger bus, they have about 12 people on it.
Correct.
Was with the numbers he used.
Right. And so you're going to have traffic slow down because there's going to be fewer lanes. Yep. You're going to have people crossing the streets into the center. You're going to have cars trying to take a left at the traffic lights, and so the traffic lights are going to have to be an extended amount of time, and then you're going to have bus traffic set to buses coming through and not to the traffic. So the traffic lights are going to be set up timed for buses to go through, but not necessarily for traffic. So you're really probably doubling, you know, whatever it's taking is going to be terrible to drive down San Pedro.
So
people live off San Pedro, and there's no consideration for that.
So I've been traveling this for over 20 years. This every day, every weekday, twice a day, and we're there and back. And I have seen relatively no change in traffic in that time. You've lived here over 50 years. What changes in traffic have you seen over in what period of time?
There is not going to be an excessive amount of traffic coming down San Pedro. You're just going to ruin San Pedro and make it a street that nobody wants to drive on. And there are streets in San Antonio that nobody wants to drive on right now. Broadway being one of them.
And so one of the things people are going to do, they're going to dart off of San Pedro and cut through neighborhoods.
And they're going to cut through neighborhoods, and they're going to go down McCullough. When McCullough is a one-lane bike, they're making it more bike-friendly with more bike lanes, and it's only one lane. And
it's not even level.
It's not even level. If you go up the hill, the big hill right there, it's all wobbly and terrible.
Concave, convex, everything.
It kind of constantly needs maintenance, and you're going to make it even worse.
So Betty,
I also don't believe that the cost for this and the benefit, and they don't talk about that, is worth it. And if they were upfront with people, then then they can see it too very easily.
So at $300 million, we're talking about planning something where we create permanent bus lanes that can be used by emergency vehicles, but at the same time, you're creating permanent changes to something that allows no flexibility for $300 million at the expense of all the property owners, the business owners, and the residents of the area for the sake of the riders of buses. And they talk about equity, this farce of a word, equity, but the equity is all towards ridership. It seems that they're guiding all towards what's good for the rider, not what's good for the resident, the property owner here. And so, Betty, I want to go to you, and you put the meeting together. So share with us what your thoughts are after the meeting.
I think that it's a possibility that they will woke some people up, and if they need to pay attention to what they're voting on. I think they had a lot of opinions, and I think they understand better now that what is getting ready to happen. I don't think that these people realize what's going to happen at San Pedro. I've lived in the area since 1964, and people do not ride the bus up and down San Pedro. The neighborhood does. I think it's time that we go out instead of taking their count, and possibly do our own count in the neighborhood and find out who actually takes the bus, who actually uses the transportation. We need a committee to say, I'm not believing what they're saying. So I don't know that it can be stopped, but I think we did wake some people up, and I certainly appreciated them coming forward, and I did my best.
Yes, you did great, Betty. Thank you. And so the neighborhoods that are involved in this so far, given the neighborhoods, so if people are watching, they're part of that neighborhood, they can get in touch.
It was here tonight.
The neighborhoods, yeah, that you say should be concerned.
My neighborhood was here, Always Park here, Northmore was here, North Turner Hills was here, Greater Harmony Hills was here, Delview was here.
Monte Vista?
North Central neighborhood was here. And I think that they understand that we've got to work together to build a city. It's not about separate neighborhoods. We've got to work together. And I think that we've woke people up, and I think that's going to happen. I believe it's going to happen.
Okay.
I believe a positive will come from that.
Okay. Well, good job. Thanks for putting this together. You certainly got. Hey, Jack, did you do a head count when everybody raised their hand for a poll?
Beacon Hill was here. I didn't say Beacon Hill was here.
Beacon Hill?
And I didn't say what neighborhood is yours.
I'm in a Gardendale neighborhood.
Gardendale.
Yeah.
Good. So there were 20 people behind me. I couldn't see.
Some left
When they took a poll, when Bldg took the poll, some people had already left, but one person raised their hand in no. The woman back here behind my right shoulder. Sure. And the other, but everybody else was unanimous. Other than that one was against. Did you do anybody do a hand count?
Well, I counted about 10 or 11.
That were still here at the time, 2 hours into the meeting.
Those two ladies that left early, they were against. Oh yeah.
So
was what's her name?
So to be fair, we had at the time of the vote there were call it 11 votes, and 10 were against and 1 was for. So at that point, that should tell everybody where representative where we are. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so this is Patrick Boondoggle with San Antonio Family Association. We're reporting live from VIA News office at 7067 San Pedro, and VIA just said something very important, that this project was approved with the November 3rd, 2020 vote, Proposition B, that was on the ballot in that November election, 2020, where money was transferred. The taxing of the Edwards Aquifer protection tax was transferred from Edwards Aquifer to the city of San Antonio for 5 years, and after 5 years would go to VIA. And this project was approved in that vote. So this is a new news to many people, and there's lots of work to be done if project is going to be stopped or changed to the benefit of the property owners, residents that are down the San Pedro corridor. So for more information, SanAntonioFamAssociation.com and Facebook San Antonio Fam Association. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Have a great night.